savings, investing. And for someone like her, we were talking about, of course, ideally, everything you buy is outright cash. I think I mentioned it in the last session. It's one of the reasons why people who have money stay wealthier. Yeah. Because for someone who can buy a house outright, it costs them whatever they've paid for it. But for someone on a 35-year mortgage, you're right, you probably end up paying close to double what you've bought it for. Yeah. So it's so much more expensive.
So much.
And obviously, if you can buy with cash outright, then of course you don't have any more ongoing payments on a mortgage. So any of your surplus income from that point onwards, you can start to double down on things like pension contributions or ISA contributions or any other investments that you want to make. So yeah, that's, in an ideal world, you do that. But you've got to take into account how people want to live now. Some people, not this particular client, I've got another client who is younger. Her father passed away quite young, in his 40s. Completely changed her outlook on life. She wants to make sure that she enjoys life. And she needs a fair amount of steering from me to make sure that she does think about her future self as well. Yeah. But I also have to understand her mindset and need to understand that her objectives are different to some other people's. And her objective is to enjoy life to the max. So I try and help her have her best life possible within her means, whilst making sure that she's protected long term. But for her, that will look different to somebody who might be, I just want to think about the most optimal way of managing my finances now. I'm happy to live off, relatively basic needs and like keep my food bills low and keep my entertainment and going out really cheap. That's two completely different people. So you've got to understand how they work and what they want from life and what they want from me. And then we put a tailored plan in for each of those people.
Okay. So my take on this is 30 years of debt is scary. So always plan, write down the figures, work out the numbers, speak to a financial planner, and you'll be able to make this, make a smoother decision, something that you can understand and manage considerably over your lifetime, because 30 years of debt is not something to be played with. And if you fail to repay multiple times, they will take the property back from you and you will not recoup any of the money you put forward, which is scary to the more average earner than someone who's in a position that could be like, I save a lot of money anyway and I have a lot of savings that could protect me if things go wrong.
Yeah.
To the everyday person, once you decide to take a mortgage out, you're possibly also saying, I am not making any more pension contributions. I'm not investing in my stocks and shares ISA anymore. It's the pension or the investments. It's one or the other to some.
Yeah. You've also got to take into account the kind of mortgage you take out. So for someone who might not have any surplus income to add into savings or pensions or anything like that, you've got to work out their affordability. And we had a period of time throughout the 2010s where mortgage rates just stayed really low. And people were quite happily taking on a chunky amount of debt because the repayments were relatively affordable. Yeah. And it felt like that was going to be the norm and that was going to be around forever. But that was an artificially low level of interest rates. We're closer now to what the normal interest rate is at around about 4% now than we were.
The recession back then, yeah?
Yeah, due to the quantitative easing process that happened following the recession, where central banks just kind of pumped the economy with additional cash by issuing bonds. And that was, the effect of that was that mortgage rates were incredibly low for a long period of time. The challenge that a lot of households had, though, was that post-COVID, when inflation kind of got away from us and the central bank had to increase interest rates pretty rapidly, when mortgages were up for renewal at that point in time, people were going from interest rates of somewhere between 1% and 2%, maybe even lower, to all of a sudden paying interest rates at 5%, 6%, 7%.
Crazy.
Now, as an interest payment on a monthly basis, for some people that could have meant more than £1,000 a month additional cost. and those people didn't have £1,000 of surplus income. So you've got to make sure you're taking into account what your affordability is. Don't assume interest rates will stay the same forever, and make sure you're taking out the right deal. So speaking to an advisor, speaking to a mortgage broker is a really good thing to do to understand whether you should be taking out a 2-year fixed mortgage, a 5-year fixed mortgage, a variable mortgage, and having that conversation, because everyone's going to be different.
Okay, cool. Right, let's get back into credit
cards.
Yeah. Right, so for credit cards, what is the biggest risk of using a credit card? I was going to follow up with another question, but I'll ask that in a second before it gets confusing.
The biggest risk is entering into a spiral and debt cycle.
Okay.
Where the interest payments are more than you can afford to pay off each month. So every month, the interest is becoming more and more and more, and the balance is increasing until you get to your credit limit, and you can't afford to pay off the monthly payments that are coming in. So all of a sudden, what often happens there is, it's called a debt cycle, because someone might then take out another credit card to either balance transfer across so that they can start to keep those payments going, but then you've got another credit card going, or you've taken out a loan to try and pay off some of the credit card, but all of a sudden now you've got to make repayments on that loan as well as the credit card, and you're just stacking debt on top of debt, but you're not creating any more income or capital yourself.
Yeah. So
that cycle can lead you all the way to bankruptcy. And the bankruptcy is something that, again, you don't really want to have to go through. It is a process where you can kind of clear those debts. The creditors will come calling, and depending on what order those creditors are, they'll get some of their money back, but the rest of it will be written off. But you have this 2-year period where you're so limited in terms of what you can do, how much you can spend, how much you can earn, and it's on your record for a very long time.
So things will never really get back to normal even after those 2 years for yourself credit-wise?
After those 2 years, you'll find that there is a form of a clean slate.
Okay.
But that's a record that's going to be on you for a long time. So in terms of taking out loans in the future, getting a mortgage, there's going to be a record of this bankruptcy, which is going to make things very challenging for you.
Okay. So can you explain what APR is and why it's so important for people to understand it?
Yeah, so APR is an annual interest rate, which is the total annual. So it's normally a monthly interest charge. So the APR would be the interest rate based on the compounded interest month by month.
Right.
So there might be a headline interest rate of 4%, but the APR might be slightly higher because there's a compounded amount of interest month on month. So it's broken down. Every month you'll have a fractional amount of that headline interest rate. So on the first month, fractional headline interest rate, let's say it's 4%, it'll be a 12th of 4%.